know, it's the Building Downtown. You can follow us on social media at The Building DT. You can follow and subscribe to the show on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, TalkShoe, wherever you get your podcast from. I'm your host, Jason Kelly. You can follow me at JKellyMMA. Follow my co-host, Curl Kasatsky, at Curl Raps, and my other co-host, Amy Barton, at Ames Bell. I almost forgot that for a second. So today we have a lot of unique guests to come through here, but we seem to have, at least some sort of knowledge on their background and everything else. But today's guest is so unique, I couldn't even come up with a funky intro for her. So let's just bring her in. Executive Director of St. Leonard's Halfway House in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, Catherine Brooke. How's it going?
It's going very well. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us. Now, did I get the title right? That is your correct title? Okay. Now, before we get into anything, before I butcher this, what exactly does your role entail at St. Leonard's Halfway House?
As the director, I'm basically in charge of the overall management of the residential facility. So that includes anything that goes on, day to day within the boring HR media. Media is not boring, but, making sure that, we're a good community partner, that sort of thing. But then also, getting to speak about what we do, which is great. So I'm in charge of all the communications as well.
Is there sort of a timetable that you create? Is that how it goes in there, or?
Well, we do have a residential program manager that handles the actual residential program that we have, but in terms of seeing the overall structure, who's coming and going, how we operate the facility, our relationship with government partners or funders, fundraising, human resources, all that stuff.
Guidance counselor.
Yeah.
Guidance counselor.
So you have a lot of free time, is what you're saying.
Yes. And I'm not above unplugging a toilet or getting meds for the guys. I mean, all of our staff, we do what we have to do when we have to do it. We're a small staff. We're a tight staff. We're a good team, so we just do what we got to do. Dave.
How many people is in the house?
Well, wait, let's back up for a second. For people who don't know how we connected with you and exactly what it is that you are involved in. Like, why don't you describe the facility and its purpose before we get into what exactly you do day to day?
Yes. So St. Leonard's House was formed in actually 1962 by an Anglican priest who noticed the trend of men coming off the bus in downtown Windsor, getting out of the institutions and literally having nowhere to go, having no support, having no contacts. So they formed what we now know today as a halfway house. This was the first halfway house in Canada. And today, the term for halfway houses technically is community residential facility. So CRF for short, we usually call it, or you'll hear the term halfway house. So we are strictly federal. So men that are coming out of federal institutions will stay with us for a period of time, ranging anywhere from 6 months up to, we've had folks stay as long as 5 years. So it really just depends on where they're at in their process, what we can do to support them. And as you heard when you spoke with our outreach worker, Dirk, he sort of explained, we're not just the house. We really try to be out in the community as well. We're involved with diversion programs, so making sure that folks don't end up in the criminal justice system in the first place. We do a lot of outreach with folks that have left the house. We continue to be a support base for them because we don't want to see them again. We don't want them to have to go through the system again. So if it's a matter of a simple phone call or them stopping in from time to time just to maintain that support, that's definitely something that we want to do.
And this certainly isn't an entry-level position. So what's a little background on yourself? How did you end up as the role of executive director and, your first steps into this line of work?
Yeah, my educational background is in psych and crim, which obviously makes sense. I originally started out, I wanted to be a forensic psychologist. I wanted to work for corrections. And then I saw the light and I realized I don't want to be on that side of the table. I did a lot of work in addictions before I got into corrections. So I worked at a methadone clinic. I worked for our local AIDS committee, worked a lot with homelessness populations, addiction populations. I worked at a youth shelter. And it's all very difficult work, but seeing the same patterns, seeing the same types of folks that I've always been sort of, the one that roots for the underdog. I care about the people that nobody else gives a shit about. That's what gets me up in the morning. And I actually started out at St. Leonard's as a volunteer 20 years ago. for that reason, because everybody else wanted to volunteer. I want to volunteer with kids. I want to volunteer with the animals. I want to give, I want to be at the shelter doing the soup kitchen. I'm like, no, I want to be down in, ground level with the guys as they're coming out, hear their stories. Somebody, needs to listen to them to even motivate them to want to do better. So I started out as a volunteer. I did my master's research on the lifers at St. Leonard's. So that right from the start was a passion for me. I really gravitated to those men that had served a life sentence. It's a very different population. I can describe later on what makes them so unique. And then after I did my education there, I really, I missed it. And I missed being just at that basic social level with folks. I missed being involved. So I joined the board, and I was on the board of directors for about 10 years. And it's one of those agencies where, you get one foot in the door and they suck you in and you never leave. So I've actually been involved with the agency for over 20 years, but in this position, I became the director 6 years ago.
And you mentioned, you saw the light, you wanted to be involved in corrections, but you see the other side. What was like the one thing or some of the things that made you make that change, career change, or your career course change?
Even when I was in school, you always heard about, and not to take anything away from the wonderful work they do, but we have victims advocates. We have people working on, the other side of the law. And I always felt like, okay, you have folks that commit crimes, you have folks that, do these heinous things, supposedly. There has to be a reason and something that brought them to that point. I don't believe that people are born evil. There are obviously certain criminals that are the worst of the worst. I'm not talking about the 1%. I'm not talking about the Bernardos and the Clifford Olsons. I'm talking about 99% of the men who have, unfortunately, a very similar story. And you can see exactly when you go back to the childhood, when you go back to the opportunities and barriers that they've had, you can see exactly why the decisions were made that they were and why they ended up where they were. And every single one of us is one poor decision away from being in their shoes. So and once we get the files, they come across our desk. We have people that want to come to our halfway house. And once I read them, once the staff reads them, they go in a file and we start fresh. Okay, your name is so-and-so. Welcome. We're glad to have you. I get to know them for who they are as they present that day. And I don't, obviously we have safety protocols that we have to follow, but I really try to forget what the crime was and get to know that person for who they are. That's
one question I wanted to ask you. Was there any safety concerns for your well-being, or... I understand that people change and everything, right? But the stigma of it, right? Because you're meeting somebody who's done a hard time for violent crime or murder a lot of times. Yep. Was there ever a concern? Obviously, now that you're so into it, right? Yeah. You understand that that it's different. But at first, was there?
Yes and no. When I started off as a volunteer, for example, I knew that there was an application process to the house. We don't take people who have, if somebody has committed first or second degree murder, we don't take anybody with a sexual component to that crime. That is an arrangement that we made with the City of Windsor when we started bringing lifers to the halfway house. We don't take anyone who has offenses against children within the house. I mean, we wear the panic buttons, we have cameras, we do the screening process where people have to apply. We go through their entire records. We read the psychology reports. We read the safety reports. So we know who's in our house. Does that mean that something could happen? Sure. At any given time, unfortunately, things happen where there could be a fight. There could be, somebody could challenge a staff member. Knock on wood, in 60 years, we've never had that happen.
Wow.
We've never had, you might get the verbal altercation between guys. We've never had a physical altercation between guys. We've never had a staff member injured. We've used the panic button once, and that was because two guys started to kind of go at each other, and the staff intervened by, having the police come to the house to break that up. So we really pride ourselves on, and again, it starts with the moment they hit that door, creating that rapport, creating that safe space where, like, we're glad to have you here. We want you to be here. We want you to do well. We don't want you to go back. You have an opportunity here to, take advantage of being in the halfway house, exploit the options that you have here, exploit the supports. You're going to be living rent-free. you have the opportunity, to find employment, to find housing, to repair a relationship, say with family. This is your safe place to be able to make those mistakes. So I really believe that the staff that we have are absolutely amazing, and they create that special bond like right from day one.
I have a little follow-up for that. So let's say with the staff is not so many altercation, but these people have done a lot of hard time, and they have a lot of rules up to certain things, because I personally know people that come out and they're still on the inside for the first little while.
Oh yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean? So
Yep.
What I was going to ask is there a lot of altercation between the people inside of the house?
No.
So
and I don't know.
You managed to keep that in check, huh?
We do. And I mean, sure, guys, might not like each other, and you hear the comments back and forth, but it's not worth going back for. And they know that if they get into a physical altercation or start, threatening somebody, they're going to go back. And that other person that they're beefing with, it's not worth it. Or they'll come down and say, listen, I have an issue with so-and-so, you better keep us apart or whatever. And we take that very seriously. And if we also are able to look into an individual's past to see if there's incompatible. So if there's somebody coming to the house, we're not going to let the co-accused come. We're not going to let somebody who maybe had, an issue with the other person in the past. So we make sure that we don't have folks coming in that have an issue with each other.
So it's pretty much, it's an ongoing case of like, you've made it this far and they don't really violate
it's not worth. And the same thing with staff. A lot of the staff think like, well, especially as a woman, you can't possibly feel safe working there. I am not worth going back to jail for. You know what I mean? They're not going to risk how far they've come to do something stupid like that. And a lot of times, even if a resident will start to mouth off to one of the staff, the other guys will get involved and be like, knock it off. Like, what are you doing? They're here to help you. Why are you getting on their case? So they kind of, police each other too.
Where you, like you just said, a lot of people look at these people like they're the lowest form of society. They don't even want to extend any sort of help to these people. So do a lot of people that come in there, are they reluctant at first to think like, anyone that's ever tried to help them has done them wrong? So Are they kind of hesitant to accept what you're offering?
Sure, definitely. We are seen as CSE. We are part of Correctional Services Canada. And I make it very clear, they pay our bills. We are not CSE employees. I do not work for them. They are the ones that did, like, I am not the judge. I am not the jury. I am not the police that arrested you. I am not the lawyer that was out to put you away. I'm not your institutional parole officer. I'm not your parole officer. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to go back. I need you in my bed. I need to, collect money essentially off you being in my bed. I don't want you to go back. I don't want you to be unsuccessful. What I say to people on the street when they say, like, how can you work with those people? I say, well, they're going to get out. If you don't like the sentences, take it up with the law people. They're the ones that make the laws. I don't make the laws. I don't have to agree with them. Do I think that somebody who has, done something heinous should get out in 10 years? That's not up for me to decide. They've already done their time. When they come out, my job is to make sure that they are successful with reintegration. And a lot of that has to do with, what they choose to do with their time out.
What stage I know Dirk, for those that don't know what we're talking about, may not have caught it, the episode, I guess it would have been before this one, we had on Dirk Young, who spent some time there. He now works in the outreach program. Is that correct?
Yes.
Catherine? Okay, yeah. It's a great episode. I encourage anyone to go listen to it. Yeah. It was amazing. Dirk is, and I'm not tooting our own horn. Dirk,
no, he's quite a character.
Yeah, man, he was amazing. So he talked about it a little bit, but I assume you can elaborate more on it. It's not like you're in jail for 14 years and when that mark hits, you go to St. Leonard's. That's not how it works, right? No. There's stages they have to go through. So they are on the path to being rehabilitated, reformed. I don't know what the correct word would be by the time they get to you. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay. So does that make them know what's to come, what to expect? Because you keep saying they don't want to fuck this up, right? They don't want to get sent back. So there has to be some sort of stages set up between sitting in that cell and sleeping in a bed at St. Leonard's house. What are the steps that are taken in between?
From the day somebody gets charged, I reach out to them. We send them a letter and an application package saying, listen, you're from Windsor. Chances are you're coming back here. You need to add us to your phone list. You need to start making a relationship with us now. We are here to support you literally from day one. I don't care if the guy's not getting out for 10, 20 years. We still start that communication. We have some men that we have dealt with for decades that are serving a life sentence that we still support. We have a 90-year-old gentleman that we're trying to get out. We have, you know, it's ridiculous that some of these folks are still in, but that's, I think, what makes us so special, because we do start that relationship day one. And even if you decide down the road, you know what, I need to get out of Windsor, I'm going to relocate somebody else, we're still going to support you. You know what I mean? Like, we don't just, you don't have to come to us to get our support. We've also had a program for a very long time. It was called Lifeline. Then it was canceled by the Conservative government. We brought it back under a different name, self-funded. That's a whole other episode. Yeah. we hire lifers to go back into the institutions and to literally work with these guys from day one. Because when you go inside and you're facing 10, 20 years, there is no hope. Like, what's going to keep you going? What's going to motivate you to do these correctional programs and to meet with your parole officer and have, you know, a positive outlook? So yes, they have the phone support with our staff, but at the same time, who better understands what they're going through than somebody who's been there?
We touched on it with Dirk. It's sort of an addiction based, right? It's who else? Nobody else will understand an addict like another addict, right? Sure. So that's how it works, and it's a beautiful thing you got going on there. How long were you in touch with Dirk before he got out?
Oh gosh, I knew him for the full 6 years that I was there, but he had already started communicating with our caseworkers, Jen and Michelle, probably maybe 5-6 years before that. So pretty much most of his sentence. We're
so kind of looking forward to this role. That
yeah. So we supported him all throughout. We had, like I said, our in-reach worker that worked with him. And then when it sort of, so what the process looks like, so they go in, there's going to be that cascading from maximum to medium to minimum that Dirk talked about. There's going to be different programs that corrections is going to expect them to do based on different risk assessments and that sort of thing. When it gets to the point of that day parole eligibility, or we know that they're getting towards the end of their sentence, they can have their parole officer inside make a request to us and the Windsor parole office, will you take this person? And it's a formal, you know, approval process that we go through. And once they are approved, then that goes to the parole board. They meet with the parole board. Parole board says yay or nay. And if they're granted day parole, I mean, it's a simplification of the process, but if they're granted day parole, then we're notified and we prepare for them to come.
In this case, it's justified, but that seems like a lot of back and forth paperwork. Huh?
A lot of it, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Especially with lifers, it drives us crazy because they have what they call unescorted temporary absences. So you have, the thing with lifers, a lot of these people have never seen the inside of a prison. They've never so much as received a parking ticket. A lot of it is domestic abuse, or it could have been, you know, the bar fight that went wrong. It could be one drug dealer, you know, knocking off another drug dealer, whatever the case may be. These aren't necessarily people that are lifelong hardened criminals. So when they come to us and say, well, you know, we need to be very gradual with this, and we're going to make them cascade down to minimum, and then they have to go out into the community, you know, escorted absences, and make sure that they can handle that. And then we're going to make them do these unescorted absences where they go to a halfway house maybe 3 times over a year to prove that they can be trusted. And then we're going to go back to the parole board and see if, you know, but then we can grant day parole. Whereas a lot of times we've been working with this person for decades. We feel we have a good rapport with them. We're willing to take them right on day parole. If they screw up, they're going to go back anyways. I don't know why they have to necessarily come to the community for, you know, a week or so to prove themselves. It's actually, I think, somewhat cruel to make folks, you know, you come out for a week, you set up a bank account, maybe get your ID updated, make a connection with the halfway house, get to know the halfway house. Okay, now you got to go back. Go back. We'll reapply for another UTA. You can come back down again. You're going to get to know us again. We're going to do a little bit of programming with you, and then we're going to send you back. And then you get to do it one more time. And then you're going to go to the parole board and say, see, I was a good boy. I did everything you asked of me. Can I go and stay now at the halfway house? So it can be frustrating. I understand why they do it. They want a gradual release because you're going from a very toxic environment where, I mean, every single person that comes out of those environments has PTSD. I don't care what anybody says. You can't live in that environment without being affected by it. So I understand the reason for that gradual release. But to me, I would rather see them get out sooner and spend a longer period of time in the community working with us. Being inside longer is not helping the situation. It is creating a much bigger problem.
So what happens if, you know, you're saying the process starts day one? What happens if day one they go, I don't want to save your number, I don't want to hear from you, go fuck yourself?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
I mean, but do you reach back out after they've had some time to
exactly. When and if you're ready, you know where to find us. If you want to go to another community, let me know where you want to go. I can make a connection for you. Like, it's, some people don't want to come back to where the crime happened because they're trying to, you know, they get sober or they realize I can't go back there because that's where my demons are. Great. Go to another community. I totally encourage that. But if they want to come back home and they want assistance with that, let us know.
Is there any leniency to what before, like, can somebody have, you know, make mistakes and not get sent back? Is there any, so there's a little bit of leniency there, a little bit of leeway?
It really is a case by case basis. One of our biggest, another misconception is, well, these guys are just going to get out and do it again. No, recidivism rates are very low. People are not going back to prison because they've committed a new crime. They're going back because they've breached a condition.
Violated parole or something, right?
And it's a dirty piss test. 9 times out of 10, they've used drugs or they've used alcohol or they were hanging out with the woman that there was not, you know, not supposed to be associating with. It's not because they've committed a new crime. So the biggest struggle we have is especially over substance abuse, because we know sending them back is not going to fix the addiction problem. Maybe we need to keep them in the community and wrap more supports around them. So last couple of years, our residential program manager, Michelle, she is a certified addiction counselor. We've developed our own program in-house because the wait lists are unbelievable. And it's not always, you know, conducive for them to, if they're working, making those AA meetings. And not everybody wants to do AA. Not everybody wants to go to a residential treatment center. So we provide that in-house. So I would much rather have him, you know, okay, yeah, you've got a problem. We need to address it. We're going to have you meet with our addiction person an hour a week, every week. You're going to have to do that. You're going to have to do, you know, your P tests and that kind of stuff to make sure you're okay. We're going to be checking in on you more, but let's try this first. And then if it happens, you know, that 3rd, 4th time, okay, you're not taking it seriously. You're going to have to go back.
Yeah. And as much as I'm sure a person in your position, no matter how much you care, you cannot become too personally attached to these people.
No.
Are there still some over your career that have just been fucking heartbreaking to see them go back?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's got to be rough.
Yeah. There are days that we are all in tears, and it's not because we're a bunch of sappy women. It's because we care. You can't not care about some of these folks. Some of them are, you know, the complete assholes that I don't ever want to see again. And we've banned people because they don't get it. They're never going to get it. I don't have time for those people. The people that want help and want to change, I will bend over backwards for.
You would think that by getting to this point where you are, they were working with you, most of them would not want to go back or slip up or anything like that, right? Because I know, like, I have enough friends that have been through the system, and I know for a fact that when people do federal time, right, when they go into penitentiary, they just want to do their time, right? And they want to get out because they know they're doing a long time. Where in Milton, was just like a jail, right? I know of one guy that went in to do 6 months that did 2.5 years.
Yeah. That's another misconception. The public thinks, oh, these sentences aren't long enough. Oh, they're long enough because they go past the dates because of the bureaucracy and the administrative bullshit that goes on. People definitely serve longer than.
Amy, you were going to chime in with something there. So before I move on.
Yeah, I was just curious. You mentioned, you know, lists and all that. What is the capacity? What is your capacity?
We can, we used to take up to 28. And then we started, we take 25. We can cram more in if we have to. 25 is a comfortable max. I mean, when you start getting into, you know, 26, 27, it can get.
Is this Ontario or is this from all over the country?
We will take anybody from all over the country.
From anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when the guys come in that are they want to be, they want to get back on the right path, and you're doing everything you can. What do you start with first? I know you mentioned IDs and stuff like that with the UTAs, but like say, when would finding a job come into play, or getting them enrolled in some sort of organization that's outside of that, whether it be a sports league, a card league, whatever the hell it may be, to build their social skills? What is the process for that? And I mean, especially working, you being the one that's representing them, they're pretty much being upfront and saying that, I have a criminal record, and it's, I didn't steal a car, right? Like I did something. So what challenges does that propose?
Well, when folks first come, we usually give them a time to just decompress. I mean, the first week, we're not going to bug you. Just, rest, get settled, if you're not from Windsor, especially get to know the neighborhood. And then we start working on the things like ID, getting a doctor. We have an employment counselor in-house, so he'll help with resumes, job contacts. We work with, if somebody, is really anxious to get that job, we can connect them with the different employment programs out there. And we have connections with different employers that they're willing to, give our guys a shot. And it really depends on them. If this is an older person who's basically around retirement age, obviously our plan with him is going to be very different. And it would be focused probably more on volunteering or finding, some kind of an activity to keep them busy. The younger guys, we really do push employment. If they have not finished schooling, we really encourage them to get at least finish high school or to pick up some kind of a trade. We do have an education fund where we can help them with whether it's getting your forklift license, whether it's, different types of computer programs, whatever, just to get them, more employable. But some of the guys, especially ones that have just come out of treatment or have a mental health or addiction issue, we're not going to be pushing employment. They need to take that time in the house to focus on themselves and to get them to a point where they are even able to handle something like a job or that kind of a commitment.
I imagine it's like difficult to get a job as a felon, right? After doing the time and everything. What in your experience was the most common job that people got after? That's
what I was going to ask. What industry? What is the?
You know what I mean? Because from what Dirk told us, he's got a stack of certificates, and it's still a hell of a
it's a bitch
job to get a job.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're willing to do. There's work. There's definitely work available. Not everybody's. What
would you say was the most common one between
general labor, factory work?
Where
you can make a decent wage. If you're willing to work at a factory, they don't care about your criminal background. They don't. You're not going to work with children. You're not going to be a counselor. If you were.
Brinks truck driver.
No, but say you were an accountant before, you're not going to be working in a bank. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain places you are no longer an option for you. But we've had different guys start their own businesses, start their own like groundskeeping, or they'll do, like some kind of a general labor. We have guys that went in with skills. They were a plumber beforehand. They were a welder beforehand. They come out, they get back in with their union and pick up where they left off. So, there is a misconception. Nobody's going to hire somebody with a criminal record. A lot of places don't even ask, do you have a criminal record? Because they're desperate for good workers.
Yeah. Do you have to disclose what kind of criminal record do you have? I know you have to say you do have a criminal record, but
depends,
because there could be theft under 5,000, and there could be a gun charge, or what I mean.
We encourage the guys to be honest, because your parole officer is going to want to meet with you from time to time. If you have, they're going to see your address. There's always ways that it could come out. We encourage the guys to be honest. They don't have to. And a lot of times, honestly, it's not a big deal. The employers don't care. They want somebody with a good work ethic who's going to show up, who's going to do the job and not call in sick every 5 minutes. That's what they want.
True enough, but I would imagine it's easier to say that, I was stupid, I stole something, or then rather than I did 10 years for a gun.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
That's kind of what I was looking at.
Yeah. But unfortunately, some of those guys that have done the trafficking, the robbery, the human trafficking, they're not too motivated, shall we say, to find a job. Like there's two different kinds of guys in the house too. There's the one that are truly committed to wanting to do anything to change their path. And we have a lot of other guys who are not ready. They're just biding their time till they can get back out there and do what they're doing before.
I would imagine too, though, that like the companies that are at one point were like willing to work with you have probably grown into maybe even preferring some of your guys. I mean, if you talk about the work ethic, who better than somebody who's fighting to never go back to what they just got out of? Like they're going to show up on time. They're going to work, and they need the money.
And we're not going to recommend people that we know aren't ready yet. You know, we're not going to set somebody up to fail. If somebody doesn't have transportation, which is a huge barrier, somebody doesn't have transportation, if somebody can't read or write, if somebody has, you know, English as a second language issue, we take that into account when we're looking, you know, for job placement for people.
And what about for elderly people that come out that have health complications? Because I mean, say you do something when you're 41 years old and you do a 20-year sentence, you're 61 years old now. It's much harder to find employment when you're 61 years old and you have health complications. If you did 20-year bid, you weren't getting all the vitamins you need from the time you're 41 to 61. So what kind of challenges does that propose when you're working with someone like that? They could be diabetic, whatever it may be.
Yes, it is a challenge. We have some older men right now who want to work, who physically don't feel they are able to work, or they can't do the type of work that is available. So that general labor, they can't physically do it anymore. So we will help them possibly get a disability application going, or we try to find some other kind of part-time work that would, you know, be more accommodating of their situation. We also have a program in the house, we call it the Good Neighbor Service, where we are actually working with the City of Windsor, with the different business improvement associations, where people who need to do community service hours, our guys that are with us that are having a hard time finding employment or are not as employable, we go out and we do graffiti removal, litter pickup, just trying to keep, you know, give back to the community and keep our communities clean.
No, I love graffiti.
So what about, like, you mentioned a couple times already that, you know, there's a couple types, right? And some of them just want to get the hell out of there. They want to get done. Yeah. So while they're there, I mean, there's an application process, there's intake, there's all these regulations and stipulations people have to meet. So then they get in and they're of the group that just wants to be done. Like, what are the requirements to stay there successfully? Do they have to look for a job? Do they have, like, what do they have to do while they're there?
The parole board can put different conditions on you. One condition can be to seek or remain employed. That's usually for somebody who is a drug trafficker. They want to make sure that you have a legitimate source of income coming in. Mm-hmm. We have had to let people go because they did not take it seriously and they did not try to find a job, or they refused to stay employed. They went back to jail. And at some point it becomes, it's not even up to us. The parole board or the parole office is going to step in and say, listen, you're not following your conditions. You're not following your treatment plan. We're pulling you.
And what do they do? What do you do? Do you go to jail or do you go back to federal?
You go back to federal.
Cool. Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, you need to follow those conditions. And if it's just a matter of having a job, you need to get your job. And even if it's just until you're off paper, I mean, once you hit that warrant expiry date, you know, off the record, parole doesn't care what you do either. Just get off paper, right? There's certain folks we know we're going to see them again. I mean, that's just the, you know,
but for you guys,
the system.
For you guys, though, like, obviously there's parole, but, and like whatever conditions, but like, do you have house rules? Like,
we do. And it's not hard to stay in our house. I mean, the rules are pretty basic. Don't get in a fight. Don't have an attitude issue.
Don't be
a chore. Clean up after yourself. You got to come in for curfew. Don't bring drugs into the house. Don't come back boozed up, because it's not fair to the people that are there trying to be, you know, sober.
Is it
like living with your parents again? Is basically
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is one of the conditions of staying in a house? Oh, sorry. Is sober one of the conditions of staying in a house?
According to parole, yes. You must, if you have a drug and alcohol condition, you cannot have drugs or alcohol in your system at any time.
But what if you don't?
That's when you possibly are looking at going back. You're going to be suspended.
No, but I mean, if you don't have drugs and alcohol on your condition, are you allowed?
Yes.
Are you allowed?
Yes. We don't allow it in the house, and we don't want you coming back visibly impaired out of respect to the other guys.
But you could go out and have a beer or something with a friend.
You can go have a beer. You can go smoke
That's no
weed.
problem.
I mean, it's legal.
Yeah.
Do what you want. We're not stupid. We're also very,
still like living with your parents.
And we know what goes on. We know what's in the house. We're not stupid on that either. I know the guys have drugs in there. We do, random room searches. We know who's doing, they think they're slick. We know who's doing what when they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we try to, we're very focused on harm reduction. If we have somebody coming in who's had, a 20-year addiction to crystal meth, fentanyl, and the first thing he wants to do is get his marijuana license, come on, sit down. We're going to get you hooked up on your marijuana license. I would much rather have him going for a walk around the block every 2 hours to calm himself than worrying, is he going to overdose upstairs on fentanyl? You have to look at it that way too. We have a lot of guys on methadone, Suboxone, opiate replacement therapy. We know the guys are going to use. We don't want them to. We want them to be sober. We want them to be healthy. But we also want to provide the type of environment where they can come down to us and say, I screwed up, I used. And if they come down and they admit it, we are 100% more likely to say, okay, what are we going to do? Let's advocate for you. Let's get a plan in place, a treatment plan in place, versus pulling support and sending you
Would
back.
you cover up for some people and not report to parole if you see an honest mistake?
No, we would lose our contract over that. No, because it's not helping the guy, right? It's not helping anybody.
Well, I mean, it's a great guy, and then
trust me.
This is why you don't do this.
There's nothing worse than a grown man in your office bawling, sobbing, begging for somebody to please help me. I can't do this. And I'm supposed to then call the parole office and say, okay, come and get him. No, I don't want them to come and get him, because that's not going to help. That's just, prison is a Band-Aid. It's not going to solve anything. I'd much rather, keep him in the house and send him to, a treatment program, or if he goes back, fine. They do have drug and alcohol halfway houses that guys can go to specifically for addiction.
You'd pretty much do anything in your power not to send them back to the Fed, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Again, we can't put more effort in than they do. If it gets to that point where we're more, like, did you make that appointment? Did you do this? Okay, did you follow up on that? If they're not willing to do their part, then we're not either, right? But if we know they're truly trying and they're struggling, we're going to go to bat for them.
Well,
that's
what would you like to see? Sorry, we're going to add something else. No. What would you is there anything you'd like to see done on like the prison side of things that you think would help these people for when they get to your hands and your care?
Prison doesn't work. Deterrence doesn't work. Punishment doesn't work. I want to see a therapeutic environment. These people need to be healed. They need to have people. Criminals are created by the circumstances that they've been raised in, the barriers that they faced. We all know, like the whole nature nurture argument, we all know, that somebody who has been bounced between 20 foster homes from the age of 5, who's been sexually molested, whose, parents started them on drugs at age 12. Like, do you think that they're gonna, turn into be, the model citizen? Some do. Some do.
Chances are not, though. Yeah.
But I mean, when you see the files and the unbelievably horrific situations, we have folks that have attended the residential schools, the training schools, where, you've got these supposed, great religious leaders that are holding all out fight clubs among the kids for their, entertainment. And so and you expect me to think that the system works? No, the system does not work. I would like to see more, let's start working to heal the situation that created this problem in the first place.
If we imagined it for a second, how would you imagine this healing? Say somebody committed a crime. What would the healing process be? A lot of counseling, or?
I think a lot of sentences shouldn't even be in prison. I think there should be, like first-time offenders, certain drug-related offenses. If non-violent offenses, I don't think need to be done in a prison environment. I think most people need drug and alcohol treatment. mental health. They have mental health issues. I think they'd much be better served in the community, whether it's in a facility like ours or even on house arrest with electronic monitoring. You have to see a therapist. You have to go to, this residential treatment program, whatever it may be, way further ahead than going to prison and being in that environment and learning God knows what and how to get away with this and this new drug.
Learning how to get better, right?
Well, what's interesting about all of that at a really high level to me is that it's not hard to get people to agree with the idea that a lot of times, not all criminals, but most of them, are a product of their environment. And this happened when they were a child, or this thing happened when they were a teenager, or they were in 20 foster homes, or any number of things, right? That's easy for people to believe. And the base thought there is you're a product of your environment. But when you try to extrapolate that out to you get put in prison, which is a very toxic environment, and then you are a product of that environment, that part, people can't make that leap. It's fine if it's a kid. You're a product of being a kid. But they can't wrap their head around how you could be so terrible, or how your life could be so awful, or how it's hard to rehab people out of prison, even though they're now a product of that environment, which is a terrible environment.
And I say to those people, how freaking lucky for you that you don't get it, that you've never had the situation where you could have gone down that path. Like you don't understand, so don't have a comment on it. You know what I mean? And if you have an issue, like I said, somebody, does, murder. Were you in the situation? Do you know what the circumstances were? Was it intentional? Was it, what led up to that point? Was there drugs involved? Like when you look at some of the crimes that have happened, especially with murder, people say, how can you work with those people? Aren't you afraid? No, because they're highly situational. We have men who have gone and killed their abusers. They've gone and killed the abusers that have been abusing their children. Like, I'd be doing the same thing. Why would I be afraid of that person? I'm not afraid of that person because they did something that's very, it's a natural instinct.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes to want revenge against people, or you get so far gone in a situation, it's easy sometimes for those situations.
And at that point, you're back to, mental and emotional help is what people need. I mean, look, we can all agree that killing somebody is wrong.
Yes.
It's illegal for a reason. But if you never get to the why it happened part, you'll never fix any of it.
Yes. And when you have people that saying, I need help, I have a problem. Okay, well, we're going to set you up with a therapist you can't afford. Right. Or we're going to put you on a wait list for 2 years to get, the cheap side one that you don't have to pay for, but, it's probably somebody, in training with less experience, whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get all the students mad at me now, but I mean, the system, it never invests in prevention. It's always let's fix it after the fact, and it doesn't work. And for people that don't care about people, look at it from a taxpayer standpoint. Why would you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to incarcerate somebody when it costs a quarter of that to put them in a therapeutic environment, or even a halfway house situation where you're getting better support and better management? It doesn't make financial sense to have people.
Yeah, when the budget, like you said, you guys fall kind of under the same budget as a correctional facility. The budget, like, are you guys lower on the list of priorities compared to the prisons? I'm
going to give you a statistic.
Okay.
Oh no.
Correctional Services Canada gets billions of dollars. Mm-hmm. Okay, so in the community, we house 40% of the federal population. 40% of all the criminals are in the community doing some kind of a release.
Yeah.
We make up 4% of Correctional Services Canada's budget.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. How do you guys survive? Is there people that give donations? Like,
yes.
where do you guys pull the money from?
Yes.
Because you guys don't have much to work with by the sounds of it.
No, we do a lot of
fundraising.
And
people that just did 10, 15 years won't really have much to donate either, right?
Yeah,
no. And you are not in this work to make money. That is not why we do it. Our folks are
but you still gotta
underpaid.
You still gotta float and survive somehow, right?
Yes. So I mean, We do. And it's, through proper financial management and, doing the best we can. We invest in the areas that we can. Could we do more? Yes. I tell people, even $100,000 more a year, I could have, the best mental health professionals working in-house, and it would solve so many problems. Wow. But that's not on top of the priority of,
shit.
corrections.
And like you've mentioned a few times too, like, these things, they usually come from like these major crimes, I guess we'll say. History, abuse, whatever it may be, a highly situational thing, like you said. So in your opinion, would you say like someone who's just a straight up fucking nut, they'll put a bullet in anyone's head for no reason, like, are those cases very, very rare to
very
be that
rare, and you're not getting out?
Yeah.
Like, everybody freaks out when Paul Bernardo gets a parole hearing. He is
never getting out.
He's a dangerous offender, which is an indeterminate sentence. He's never getting out.
You know what's messed up about that though? Carla Homolka, how the hell did she get out? Right?
Because the lawyers, needed a witness and cut a deal. Again, it's fucked. Not. It's
wait, this American doesn't know who this person is.
Yeah, Amy's like, what are you guys talking about? Actually,
what's happening?
Krill didn't even live in Canada then, so he's probably wondering a little bit too.
One of the most prolific killers in Canada.
The Ken and Barbie killers.
Serial killers in Canada don't compare to the US.
We're psychos down here.
Yeah. Thankfully.
Well, the population is also 5 times bigger.
Thankfully. Right? But
But those folks aren't getting out, and nor should they get out. I mean, there's people who are, you can rehab, and there are other people that truly do not deserve
it. And Homolka got a job at a school when she first got out. I couldn't believe when I found about that in the news. Who fucking missed this?
I'm still shocked that even though she told or whatever, and they cut a deal, the evidence comes out that she pretty much was a lead hand, right?
Oh yeah, it was her sister.
I don't know.
You can thank the legal system for that, because they've got some.
Yeah, there's proof right there. There's evidence right there how shitty the legal system is. Carla Homolka is walking around free as a bird.
In my opinion, it doesn't matter what kind of deal it was. If you find out that kind of shit, you should be. You know what I mean?
That was very, very crazy. Have you lived in Ontario your whole life, Catherine?
Yes, I've been living in Windsor my whole life.
Oh, okay, yeah. I've been in Kitchener, Waterloo area my whole life. So yeah, I guess you remember that very well when that was going on. The white Camaro and everything. And
yes.
Man, what a crazy time, because we don't see shit like that around here.
But again, here's somebody who, again, like, this is the psychologist, criminologist in me. I want to, get in there and think, okay, so what happened, at age 4, age 6, there's got to be something in there that created this person, right? Do I think he should get out? Absolutely not. Am I defending him? Never. But again, there must, what's going on there that, would have created this person?
What's your take on, because it's a big, big industry, true crime as entertainment?
Oh yeah.
I mean, do you have any feelings on it?
Yes and no. I'm torn, because obviously I grew up watching that stuff. That's why I ended up doing what I'm doing.
Right.
People are drawn to it because I think because people can't understand how people can do those types of things and live like that.
Yep.
I got into it again because it was sort of like what led them to do that. I do have a really hard time, like, when people approach us and they want us to do a fundraiser, can you give us a guy to tell us his story, and we're going to come and we're going to take pictures? Not in my house. You are not going to exploit these people to sell your, whatever. I refuse that. And even in, like, when I was doing homelessness work, we talk about poverty porn. Like, you're not exploiting these people to make yourself look good. Like, I gave to this cause, and I went to McDonald's, and I came back and I gave my McDonald's to that guy in the corner. Well, good for you. Yeah. What systemic change are you possibly, doing with that? Like, good. That's a good deed. That's great. Do you need to post about it on social media?
Yep.
That kind of stuff just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Well, yes, they do, because that's why they did it.
Yeah, that's exactly why they did it. So they go make a Facebook status. Yeah. Look at me go. Get their likes up. Pathetic.
But I also believe that by studying it and exploring it and raising awareness about stuff, that there's at least a possibility to hopefully, change the system. And I've seen changes where it's gone from obviously deterrence-based punishment. We're going to, put these people in, they shouldn't have any time outside of their cell. And it's definitely changed. There's more of a human rights approach to it. And Canada's system is obviously, way better than what goes on in the States.
So there's a lot of, whether you want it to be the case or not, there's a lot of negativity. There are a lot of challenges, a lot of sad moments and stories and whatnot. But what are some of from your time there, maybe not names or whatever, but favorite like success stories that you've seen somebody really just shoot out of there and be what they were going to be?
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. We, one of the things that we've done in the last couple of years, we adopted a dog for the house.
Yay!
So
nice. I saw that on the website. That was cool.
We've got this huge husky, this old grumpy dog, but he's so good because we have men that come into the house who've got, you got the neck tattoos, they've got just these really hardened, think they're so tough or whatever, and you'll see them
see a dog
curled up on the couch, talking baby talk, to a dog, or to see. We've had when people will come down and say, thank you for listening to me. Nobody's ever done that before. Or for the guy who gets the high school diploma. Or, we had one guy come in who had never worked a legitimate job in his life, had never earned legal income. And we got him a job and he came in and he was so proud that first day. Mm-hmm. And the smile on his face is probably a smile that he hasn't had in decades. Oh. And we were so excited for him and pumping him up and, tell us all about it. This is so great. And we're so proud of you. And he didn't look like he knew whether to cry or to, celebrate, or he was embarrassed. Like it was, I don't know. It's you feel very protective, of a lot of the guys, and especially the older ones too. It's like you want to make sure that they have, for whatever happened before those last few years, you want them to be happy. You want them to be, I want them to feel, for some of them, love for the first time ever. Like they've never had somebody that's actually cared about them and listened to them. And those are the days when I go home and I'm like, yes, I like what I do. I feel good about what I do. And then you have other days where somebody says, F you guys are a bunch of whatever. And I think, what, why do I do this? But more days than not.
What is the situation surrounding, or I don't know if you have rules or whatever, but like once these guys are out, mm-hmm. do you or can you keep in touch if they're not volunteering and working for you?
Yes, we encourage them to. We don't expect them to. Some people, once they leave, they want to put that behind them. They are done. But a lot of folks will reach out and say, oh, I just wanted to let you know, I got married, or I got this great job, or, I just wanted to say thank you, or I've moved someplace else. Or we've had guys that, the ones that I really like are when they're from another community and we offer to take them. I'm not going to Windsor, what the hell? I'm going to Windsor. And then they come, and within a week, I love it here. I want to stay here. You guys are so cool. You guys are so great. You've helped me so much, blah, blah, blah. And of course, I'm tooting our own horn because I think that's best. But that makes me feel good. When you can have somebody from a different community who is we've had guys that had to be escorted to Windsor, literally kicking and screaming, getting out of the car because they didn't want to come to Windsor. They're from Toronto, or they're from, someplace else. I'm not going to Windsor. And then they end up deciding that once they're off paper, they've got an apartment in Windsor. They got a good job in Windsor. They've got a girlfriend in Windsor. They're staying.
Yeah, they have a life.
And they've had family move to Windsor to be with them, and they've started over. I'm so proud of that.
I would imagine oftentimes you're talking about a population of people who, when you really boil it all down, have found for the first time in their entire lives purpose. Purpose is what it's all about. So the girlfriend, the job, the money, that can be found anywhere. But the second that they came to you and they found a purpose in getting out of jail, it's easy to want to stay in that place, that area. Yeah.
Mm. With the families, do you have any contact with them when people are residing in the house?
Yes, we actually have our caseworker, Jen, and we have a chaplain that works with us as well. So any of the guys that want any kind of spiritual counseling, they can reach out to him. They have formed a support group for spouses and mothers of offenders. They're the forgotten victims. Nobody ever thinks about the poor families, right? They think of the victims and the victims' families, understandably, but the families of the offender are also victims because they've lost their son. A lot of times, whatever negativity the public has is directed at the family because they can't get to the offender. So, well, what the hell did the mother do to create that? You know, must be the mother's fault, must be the father's fault. So there's a lot of, you know, pressure on that family and a lot of, you know, negativity. They are completely dragged through the legal system. And we all know how victims are treated by the legal system. Well, they're completely forgotten by the legal system. Yep. So we've got, you know, on average 20 or so women that meet every other week to get together and to talk about, you know, how hard it is to have a loved one incarcerated and to, you know, how their lives have fallen apart and how they have to rebuild. So we do reach out to a lot of the families. A lot of the families will call. Obviously, we can't, you know, tell them about specifically what we're doing in the house with them. And we have to, you know, maintain confidentiality, but providing support for the family and the girlfriends, the wives it's a big part of it as well.
And in your experiences, do you notice that reestablishing or even establishing in some senses the sense of family with a person who was at a jail, they were a lifer or whatever, does that help a lot to get them back on the right track? It
does, especially if there's children involved. The really hard cases are when having the children aren't enough. I sometimes struggle with that. Like, you can't give up the drugs and you've got, you know, a 3 and a 4-year-old that you've never met because they were infants when you went in. That stuff I struggle with. But again, I can't judge because I'm not in that situation. I've never dealt with an addiction issue, but that, if anything, shows you how strong it can be. But for the most part, I mean, we try to encourage, you know, family if it's positive. We have a lot of situations where we help the men remove themselves from family because it's so toxic, and it's not a good thing. So we help them almost, you know, mourn the loss of those connections by helping them move past them.
You ever get anyone trying to run across the border? Has that ever happened? And a little out of left field question just popped in my head. See, and you even laughed because in my head I was like, there's some humor to that, as bad as it is. You have had that?
Yeah.
So then what? Customs gives you a shout and says, hey, we got one of yours here?
We've never had one of our guys for the border, to my knowledge. But we've had people that have gone through the house that have, you know, we always, whenever there's a story in the, you know, the paper about, you know, some crime, we're always you know, showing them, hey, check out who it is on page 1.
Right.
Finally got them, you know. But no, I mean, you hear different stories about.
Do you guys work with other like, or at least communicate with other halfway houses across the country?
Yes.
Yeah, because I noticed when I was looking up St. Leonard's, I see stuff in Surrey, BC, and in different places. So I wasn't sure how far the spread. Yeah,
we're the first. We are all independently owned and operated. But a little known fact for you guys, a little trivia pursuit question: the patron saint of prisoners was St. Leonard. So that's where the whole St. Leonard thing came from. So there's tons of St. Leonards across Canada, and you know, it helps to have that network. So I can call up different ones like, okay, we're having a problem with this. What are you guys doing at your house? Or we've even had it where another house, say, you know, in London, they have a wait list. You know, we've accepted so-and-so, he really deserves to be out, but we're full. Can you take him until we have a bed available? Sure, yeah, we'll do that. So we've even transferred people back and forth if we have to. Or
So wait, I've got a question. I mean, we've all said halfway house about 100 times so far. In at least in my American lexicon, it's very common for the term halfway house to mean a lot of different things, but oftentimes that's like children that are in the system, domestic abuse survivors, minors that maybe can't go to prison but don't have somewhere else to be, you know, homeless people. So what is that there? Like, we call a lot of things a halfway house.
Yeah, it is like it's a transitional facility. So it's you're locked down from 11 o'clock at night till 6 in the morning. So during the day you can go out and work and, you know, do what you need to do, but At night, the doors are literally locked. You have to sign in, so many times throughout the day. You have to call every 4 hours. Every time you change location, you have to let us know. So it's basically, it's a way to continue that supervision. You're continuing the prison sentence into the community, and part of it is supervised. So it's just sort of that gradual release. It's an extension of prison, but with a lot less restrictions.
And you were saying when people get off paperwork, they stay in Windsor too. From what I understood, also Dirk was saying that a lot of people stay on parole for life.
With lifers, yes, you are forever on parole. Life sentences in Canada are not life inside. You serve a period of time inside, but then you continue your sentence, your life sentence in the community.
By the way, that is wild.
Yeah.
Why? Are you gonna elaborate on this, Amy, or is this just
no? Because I would say, it was the same thing I said to Dirk. Is that like in America, for the most part, a life sentence is a life sentence, and like the rest of that sentence coming out of the mouth is oftentimes without possibility of parole. Like you will die in prison. Yeah. Is what a life sentence oftentimes means here. So I couldn't, Catherine, get over when Dirk was like, oh yeah, I had a life sentence or whoever. And like after 5 years, I was like, wait a minute, life sentence means forever. And he was like, oh, we don't do that in Canada.
And I know a lot of, critics are really, angry that we don't have, life. You take a life, you serve a life. I'm proud of the fact that Canada is more liberal in the sense that they do believe in rehabilitation and that people can change and that mistakes are made. People always say, well, yeah, what if somebody did something to, one of your parents or your spouse or a friend? And yes, my first thought is revenge. I, want to kill them. But then when I stop and I think about it, I'm like, no, you know what? I would much rather have that person have to sit and think about it for a while in prison. But I also want something positive to come out of it. I want that person to heal. I want them to become a functioning member of society. I want them to contribute and to give back. I believe in restorative justice. That's sort of a buzzword that's been around for a little bit now, but where the offender and the victim can try to heal that relationship, repair that relationship. And it can be a very powerful thing. And we've had victims on our board. We've had guys in the house that have gone through that process where they actually meet with their victim and they have that conversation where the victim can then understand, okay, I didn't realize that this was going on in your life or that you had, this life story. And the offender learns about their victim or the victim's family. And it really is an opportunity to heal. It's an opportunity to people to see each other as people and not that person that did that thing. It gives power back to the victim to be able to give their story directly to the offender instead of to the lawyer, to the judge, to the jury. The legal system takes power away from victims. This is a way to restore it and to allow them to tell their story directly to the offender, and for the offender to, apologize to that individual right there in real time and let them know, like, this is my story and this is how I got to this point.
Have you looked into the way things like someone in your position or St. Leonard's type place in the United States, or even know someone that works at a place there and spoke to them over the years to know the difference between Canada and the US?
Sure. Yeah. We're often invited to different conferences and seminars in the States because there's a lot of justice organizations that are advocating for these more, humane approaches and to focus more on healing and therapy and trauma focused and, looking at ways to I don't want to say fix people, but to try to, change the direction and just throwing people away. It's mind blowing how much money is wasted on it. And it's so negative and it doesn't solve anything, just locking people up. And especially when people go in at, 14, 16 years of age, come on, what the hell do you expect, and then they're going to, what a waste, that life to be just completely wasted. Yeah.
So in your opinion, you would say that we are much further ahead than the States would be?
Yes.
I mean,
Canada's got issues, but we are way ahead.
What about in your personal experience? How long do you remember? What was the longest term somebody has served and then came out and tried to rebuild his life and start over again? What was the longest? What was the amount of years?
We had one individual stay 5 years with us.
No. I'm saying
inside.
Inside, yeah. Like
before they came to you.
We have one gentleman now who's in his 30-something year.
Oh my God.
Still trying to get out. We've had quite a few people serve in excess of 20 years.
Can you say what he was charged with? Or no, would you rather not?
Murder.
Okay.
Murder of his wife, a domestic situation. So and this is
30-something fucking years. Oh my God.
There's no lenience there, because back home, I'm from East Ukraine. I'm Russian pretty much. I know back home you could be in temporary shock, I think it's called, or whatever it is. When, let's say, you came home and your wife is cheating. Yeah. And you murder them both, and then a lot of people say they don't even remember doing it. There's no leniency like that. How is he doing 30 years for domestic murder?
And this is why I tell people, you think, he would have gotten, I'm trying to think, I think he got life 25. So he was convicted of first-degree murder. The reason he's still in is because they have certain, again, I'm like biting the hand that feeds me. In corrections, there's a lot of discretion by their parole officer inside. They don't like you, buckle up.
Oh, wow.
Some of them have this arbitrary sense in their head that, well, you're serving a life sentence, you need to do 2 years at maximum, so many years in medium, then we'll try minimum, but you got to complete this program and this program and this program. And, oh, wait, you've got a bit of an attitude. You're challenging me. You're not following your correctional plan. I don't think that you're actually motivated to get out. So I'm not going to apply for parole for you.
Oh my God.
That sounds like a power trip.
That's exactly what it is.
We have seen so many men who are past their eligibility dates. To me, the first thing I always advocate for, eligibility dates should be automatic. You are eligible for parole, you go in front of the parole board and you present your case, and they can say no and they can turn you down, and you go back and you continue to work, and in another year you go up. When there's that much discretion by an individual parole officer inside, it can, I see it where guys get out way early because they've managed to get a really positive parole officer who believes in getting guys out at their first eligibility so they can, get back on track or whatever. We have other ones. And the old school kind of guys who challenge everything and bring up, in my file, there's such and such is wrong. It isn't actually this, it's this. Well, you're challenging me, the littlest thing like that. If you get involved with politics inside, if you want to start an inmate committee or a group, you're going to be seen as a shit disturber, and it's gonna hurt you. The guys that have been held in longer are seen as shit disturbers, and they're not going to get the opportunity to get out.
They're screwed. There's no way out.
Some of them are.
Jesus Christ.
Some of them are. As I said, we have a 90-year-old man on a friggin' oxygen tank who has been denied parole several times because he has a poor attitude.
What the fuck? He's 90. He's supposed to have a poor attitude. He's supposed to be mad at everything.
The entire basis of deciding on whether or not somebody should get parole is risk. What is their level of risk? What is their chances of doing it again? A 90-year-old man on an oxygen tank ain't going to do shit.
No, how long has he been in already?
He got first-degree murder. He's been in for 30-some years.
Oh my God.
Jesus, I didn't even think sentences like that exist in Canada. I didn't think anybody does that long.
Yeah.
I know in states they like to give out military sentences like 175 years. Here you go.
And then when COVID came in and the pandemic and all that, we were really pushing to get the older guys out. Like, come on. They can't be in there. They're at higher risk. It's a captive population.
Do you know how is it be treated in jail? Are they all being locked away in cells or?
Yeah. We weren't allowed to go into the institution, so we were relying on phone calls. Our in-reach worker couldn't even go in, so we opened up his cell phone so guys could still at least get phone support. And they were calling up and complaining that, we get a shower once or twice a week. We're down to 2 meals a day. We have to eat in our cell, not getting outdoor time. If somebody on their range tested positive, they just lock the whole range down instead of taking that person out and isolating them somewhere.
That's mentally breaking you.
It is. The other issue is, especially these because of COVID, they shut all programs down. No programs. Your day parole eligibility depends on you completing those programs. So people were being held back. Lifers they're not doing UTAs. They weren't allowing people to go into the community and then come back to the institution. So we have guys that were ready to come out serving a life sentence who have now been delayed 2 to 3 years because they still have to do those UTAs. It's been bad.
Wow.
What changed for you, like inside your facility with all of COVID? Like, were there restrictions on coming and going and all that?
It was really hard. It was because you have, these folks that they can't wait to come out, and then they come out and we're telling them, okay, you can't sign out. We have to wear masks, obviously inside. We're cleaning everything everywhere.
Does everybody have to be vaxxed?
We do now. We require it. Yes.
Yeah.
And then when the province was locked down, we were locked down. So we were allowing them, half an hour in the morning to go get smokes or, exercise, but that was it. They couldn't see their families. They couldn't, a lot of them weren't working because the jobs, weren't working. So we literally had a house of, 25 guys sitting around.
Right.
So we opened up the Wi-Fi, let's get Netflix,
that sounds like a rehab.
They were miserable. And we tried to explain to them, we're not seeing our families either. Like, we're not doing, none of us are allowed to do that, but they felt it was a punishment, against
it
them.
was for the whole freaking world.
We all did. Yeah.
Is there any sort of like monitoring on what people living in the house are allowed to watch? Like you just mentioned Netflix?
It's completely open. We do have some folks in the house that might have like a telecommunication restriction, but usually you can't have more than one cell phone. We don't have anybody with like a, no porn condition or something.
You can't have more than one cell phone?
Yes, you can have one, but you can't have two.
But is the one monitored? Like, what's the purpose? I mean, I get the purpose, but like, is the one monitored?
It's not monitored, but they figure if you have more than one, then you're dealing.
Sure.
Well, yeah, of course.
But that's the only,
if you're opening up the Wi-Fi, you could be dealing with no phone.
And for the longest time,
get a different one every month.
For the longest time, we did not want to open the Wi-Fi because then we couldn't control. Because we had some guys, anybody who is a convicted sex offender technically is not allowed to have certain social media programs or internet.
Yeah.
So
how does sorry, go ahead.
But you don't
I was just going to say, so we had to really grapple with, we're going to open it. It's your condition. It's your responsibility to make sure you're not breaking your condition. I have a program on my computer where I can see when somebody's on the house computer, I can see what's being watched, but on their personal devices, no. That's up to the parole officer can come and look through their phone.
Yeah.
I don't care what they're looking at.
Holy shit.
You've mentioned sexual offenders. Did you say you have them there or you don't?
We do. We cannot.
So this takes me to the next question. Sorry, my bad. If that obviously charges come out sooner or later between the community, right?
Yes.
How does that go along the house inside? Do they tend to gang up on somebody who's been a sexual offender?
Yeah.
Yes, that's like the ultimate. Now we have a school directly next door to our halfway house, so we cannot take child sex offenders because of the restrictions that they have. But we do take people with adult offenses. And I don't like the crime. Obviously, I don't condone it. But what I say to the other guys in the house that have an issue with it, they have done everything that they needed to do to get to the same point. They don't care what you did. It's none of your business what they did. You don't like it, that's fine. Don't engage. Don't talk to the person. Like, I really struggle with the bullying and the picking, and it never fails. But one of the biggest you know, we had a situation not that long ago where somebody was spreading crap about one of our residents, and he himself had a way more horrific crime and was a sex offender himself. And he's spreading shit about the other sex offenders in the house.
A little projecting going on.
So, yeah. So what I said when one of the guys came down and said, you know, well, I hear so-and-so's this. I thought you guys didn't let them in here. I'm like, and who told you that? Well, so-and-so told me that. Just so you know, you might want to, you know, you don't know what everybody in here is for. Mm-hmm. So when so-and-so is, you know, talking about somebody else, you might want to just stop and think, I wonder what he's in for. You know, like, you're all here to do your own time and to get on with your life. It's none of your business. Everybody's earned the right to be here. Mm. Everybody's done their time. So mind your business.
Yeah, it's true. It's just that the reason I ask that is because you deal with people who's done a lot of hard time, right? And on the inside, it would be hard to kind of get it out of your head, right?
Yeah. There's not a week that goes by that we don't say, but you're not inside now, are you? Because people still refer to their, you know, my house, my celly.
Yeah.
No, you're not inside anymore. You got to let that stuff go. I get it, but you got to let it go.
I didn't even thought about that. Like, yeah, you have to change their mentality, their way of life after serving so much time. But even the vocabulary has to change.
Imagine a decade on the inside.
Man, PTSD.
Staff have to watch too, because sometimes we'll say something that doesn't mean anything out here, but it means something entirely.
It means something to them. Inside. Yep.
When it comes to that, do you have some sort of security on staff? No. Or do you sort of handle it yourself?
No security?
Well, no, we don't.
You guys are gangsters.
We don't need security.
There's no 300-pound guy sitting in a corner.
No. Wow. We wear panic buttons. Okay. So if something goes down.
Yeah. You mentioned that. Yeah. No security.
Our staff are trained in mental health,
jiu-jitsu,
kickboxing,
crisis intervention, non-violent crisis intervention. Crazy. How to build rapport, how to diffuse a situation before it even gets to that point.
Balls of steel.
It starts at day one. If you treat people with respect, they're going to treat you with respect. And it doesn't get to that point.
There's still a certain level of bravery, though, for you and other people that work in there. Yes. There is. I don't know if you guys realize that or not, but there definitely is. There's not a lot of people that are going to go in with no security. They have a panic button, and that's it, being around people who have committed the crimes.
25 like people. You have a quarter century of time in that house.
Yeah, man.
And
crazy.
A lot of halfway houses do have security at night. They hire a security guard to do their night shift, or they do have security on staff. We've just chosen not to do it that way.
I mean, to be fair, if you're the type of person to be that concerned about that, you're not going to be the person working at the halfway house. So
that is crazy.
But still, right? If you're a police officer, you don't wear a vest expecting to get shot at.
That's a good point.
Right? There's two sides. No, but I understand, because from what it seems like, you have like a sort of a family environment going on there, right? Yes. So people actually enjoy staying there. You enjoy working with them. Yes. So it's like, I've had my fair share of addiction problems, and I've been to different rehabs, and the last one actually worked the best. Like, I still stay off my drug of choice and don't drink for a while now. And I've been to places where people didn't really care. They were just doing whatever the book said, and you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like I said, I went to Westover last, and it felt like I was a part of a family. It was, you know what I mean?
Good program. Yeah.
That's what, I'm still sober.
Yeah, it's worked well.
Yeah.
Well, I'm off my drugs of choice anyways. I smoke.
He smokes weed.
I'm not gonna lie, but
whatever works, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm California sober. Thank you.
Yeah, California sober.
So what happens if, especially if people are coming back to maybe where they came from? You're a lifelong, resident of that area. Like, what happens when you see somebody come in the door that you know them?
Ooh.
What do you mean? Like somebody
not from the system.
Like went to high school, you mean?
Your neighbor, your mom's friend, you're from that area. Yes. So what happened?
Has that happened?
Yes, it has.
Wow.
In my previous job working with homelessness, obviously there's a lot of folks that, I remembered.
Sure.
I used to do drug and alcohol testing for Children's Aid Society. A lot of those folks are the same. So when folks come in, I don't say anything. If they recognize me and they want to have a conversation about it, we will, but we start fresh, no judgment, that's in the past. We have situations maybe where, like with our caseworkers, if somebody knows somebody personally, the other person's going to be their caseworker. Like, obviously, we try to, maintain boundaries so that, the person's comfortable as well.
I mean, so caseworker's ex-husband is there after getting released from a domestic. Does he get to come there, or does he not ever end up there?
No. There's obviously certain situations where if it's that close to home, we would not accept that person.
Sure. I mean, have you had, in your personal experience, like aside from people you've known from previous work, have you had somebody personally in your life? Never?
No.
Are you surprised by that?
No, my family's pretty boring.
Well, I mean, a teacher, a neighbor, a friend, your kid, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to
I shouldn't say that. We did have, like friend's brother. I had a friend's brother from high school, kind of thing. Like, oh my God, I remember that guy. But they didn't end up coming to the house. But if he had, I would have just acted like I didn't know him. Right? Never anybody so close to me that I wouldn't have been able to maintain.
So in that instance, I mean, being that you've described it pretty thoroughly as you all do what you need to do, and I'm sure that's by choice, but also by, lack of funding, et cetera, et cetera. In your particular case, you can't just turn around anytime something feels funny to you, or you see somebody and go, oh, I can't be part of this, I'm stepping out. Like, you're the ED. So like, what happens to you if you really did have a situation where you can't tell everybody that you might know or you ran into in the past that they can't come there? Like, what do you do?
No. And again, like we might have, maybe somebody we went to high school with. We've had it where it was like somebody's son was friends with this person. Again, that it's distant enough that it was okay. We were still able to manage, to manage that situation. Obviously, if somebody's son or somebody's ex-spouse, we wouldn't take that person because it's just a conflict of interest, right? We couldn't handle. They would go to a different halfway house.
So obviously, like, we're sitting here talking to you because we talked to Dirk, and it was, great talking to him, and he had great things to say about you. In your personal life, do you have people that are like, tell me a crazy story, what happened at work? Like, do you get that a lot?
Yeah, sure. And they know.
Go on.
They know that I can't obviously give specifics, but I'm also proud of what we do, and I love talking about what I get to do on a daily basis. So, I never shy away from it, but at the same time, obviously, I have to be careful with what I say, and I would never want to give out details that would identify somebody.
Certainly.
But people always want to hear like, oh my God, you have like the coolest job, or oh my God, you have such a crazy job. Like, have you ever had this? And what about this?
Right. Well, I mean, it's fascinating, really. I mean, I have a family member whose son was a warden at a prison that Charles Manson was at, right?
God.
And so
to me, I'm like, oh my God,
right. But it's such a high profile case, right? That like there is no privacy, there is no expectation of privacy.
Yeah.
But that also leads me, I'm curious, in your case, I would think, and I guess this is my question, that a lot of the privacy type issues are more internal guidelines and regulations. I mean, it's not a healthcare facility, it's not a lawyer-client privilege, it's not jail. So like, is that all internal regulation or?
Yes, like obviously I can't speak about, anybody. I never give out names. I never talk about specific, treatment plans. We certainly don't divulge, previous convictions and what happened during a crime. All of us are cleared. We all have security clearances to be able to even have access to that information. And again, like the staff that I get to work with on a daily basis, we have each other to talk about that stuff with. So when something goes down and we can't believe what just happened, that's when we all get together and be like, oh my God, like I can't believe this. Or, oh my, you remember so-and-so, or what about this? Like we get to do that with each other. So I don't have the need to do that with friends and family.
I'm coming to your cookout. I mean, do you have, and again, like as evidenced earlier by my being like, who the hell are you guys talking? Like I've never heard of Dirk. Like, I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about. Right. So have you had yourself in the position of a high enough profile case that just was in the media that people, whether you want to talk about it or not, know that so-and-so is in your facility?
Yeah.
And there's never like a media circus surrounding that?
No, we keep a very low profile. And fortunately the local media here, if somebody's, takes off from the halfway house, they'll usually just say, somebody went, UAL. They never mention the halfway house. A lot of people don't even know we exist. We've had, again, like our neighbor's a school. Like, how cool is that? We have a grade school right next to a halfway house of people who killed somebody, right? We are a very good neighbor. We are a very good neighbor. We're a very good community partner.
Is the media just overall different with that kind of, I would have no way of knowing, but is it sensationalized when you have a serial killer? Is it as like frenetic as it is down here?
Well, for us, we don't typically take high profile cases. We're very careful with, who we choose to have.
The media,
here.
but
in the media in Canada, we don't normally see, when we have a case like that, a serial killer, like that Bruce MacArthur or whatever, that was a guy in Toronto that killed all these people. We had a guy in our house that was his cellmate, and we're like asking him, what's he like? What did he tell you? But somebody like that would never be coming to our halfway house.
You think it's because you don't want the protests going on around it, or it depends again on the crime. We do take high profile cases. But we say, there was a case, 14 years ago, I think, of a police officer that was murdered in Windsor. That individual knows you're not coming home. You need to probably focus on another community, because the hassle that he would go through, the media craze. It's not so much that I would be worried about what we would have to go through, because I would just direct them to call Corrections Canada. I don't, entertain the media. I don't give them information on who's in our house. But for a high profile local case, usually right off the bat, we tell them you should probably start looking for another community.
Yeah.
I thought it was a thing after committing after collecting a group like an organization, or after committing serious crime, after you do the time, you're not allowed to come back to that place. Or is that not true?
No. No, some communities, like the police can say that, they don't want so-and-so to come back.
So you're like banished from the town you were in?
Kind of. I've seen a thing where a buddy was banned from the city of Guelph.
Different parole offices, like we have had individuals where it wasn't high profile in our area, but it was in their hometown, and the local parole office refuses to supervise them. So essentially they can't go back there because they're not willing to supervise them.
That's some Shakespeare shit right there. Banished.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, Catherine? That they should have, the parole office should have that option? No, not so much.
It's their home community. Like, everybody, and I don't.
Wouldn't that mean that it's easier to jump right back into it?
We have dealers all the time coming back and jumping right back into it.
That's another thing I was gonna ask. How many people fake it to a point where they make it to you guys, where he's allowed outside and this and that, and start doing the same thing?
We've had people last less than 24 hours in our house before they were pulled.
Holy shit.
And I'm sorry, like I tell these guys all the time, you're not slick. You think you are, but there's a reason why you're in the halfway house. Okay, you got caught. You're not as smart as you think you are.
And then you having such an experience of going through so many people and tried so many times, right?
Half the time they sign out to go someplace right, and you see him turn left. Well, that wasn't too bright, now was it? You already know you're going someplace you're not supposed to. You might just happen to have to go for a coffee right now and go left to see what you're up to.
Okay, I'm kind of kidding, and I'm also definitely not kidding. Do you have kids, Catherine?
I do. I have one daughter.
Do you or do you not experience daily parallels?
I did not want children for a long time because of the work that I did. I do. I have I consider myself having 2 children at home. I'm married and I have a 5-year-old. So I have 2 children at home and I got 25
That's work. What I'm saying. Like you have to
25 at work.
Right. Like you have to go home sometimes and be like, do you know that I just saw you? Oh, Jesus. I just did this all day.
On a daily basis, it is, don't feed the dog. Pick up after yourself. Flush the damn toilet. Like, I mean, it is. It's ridiculous stuff that we, you know, and I'm glad that those are our biggest, like we always joke that the house meeting is the same issues. Pick up after yourself. Do your chore. You know, I'm glad those are the issues that are coming up at a house meeting. And not, oh, well, we found 3 weapons and somebody overdosed on fentanyl.
Yeah.
I mean, take it with a grain of salt, but yes, it's
that's funny.
You know, a lot of parallels.
How do you see? I can finish work, come home, and watch Law and Order to decompress. What the hell do you do? What do you do to take yourself away from work completely?
Music is huge.
Oh yeah,
yes.
Playing music or listening?
Listening. I love music. I love watching music stuff on TV. But I still love the crime documentaries, the law shows. Like I'm still right into that stuff.
Back at it. I go home and go back at it.
I don't feel the need to detach from it because I enjoy what I do. I'm one of those very fortunate people that gets to wake up every day and do what they want to do every day. So it's.
How long are your weeks? 60, 80 hours?
No, we are very big on making sure, like, you got to have that work-life balance. We do, 40-hour work week. After hours, when you're home, you're home. Mind you, the folks that I work with, we're still, chatting on social media after hours. Like, oh my God, did you hear what so-and-so said today? And that's our own problem for not detaching. But we do really try to make sure that, we're not going to overwork you. You're already underpaid. So we're going to make sure that the extra perks are there. Like we're really good with benefits. We're really good with time off. We're really good with being flexible. Like, you have a dentist appointment at 2:00. I don't care. Go. You come in late. I don't care as long as the work gets done. We're not that type of agency.
And that's probably why it works so well.
Clock out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we talked about the money thing would be a great help, but what are some of the other things that, if St. Leonard's could see, they could do 10 times more than they can now?
Yeah.
Or is it just the money, basically?
Money would solve all problems because the types of programs and things that I would like to offer, you need money to do it. I just wish that we could provide more, for our guys. If we could have somebody on staff that just does housing. Helping guys find apartments. We have so many guys who have never signed a lease before. They don't know questions to ask. They don't know what information to give out or to not give out. I'd love to have somebody who could work, specifically with those really difficult mental health issues. I wish we could have, like a rec person that just does, activities and stuff like that. But we don't. All
comes back to money, right?
I mean, could you open those up for volunteer positions?
Yes and no. The types of volunteers that you get, a lot of times they're younger people that don't have, necessarily the experience yet, and there's, a huge liability there that we have to be aware of. In terms of recreational, yes, we have our volunteers that take them to, hockey games or, play cards, that kind of, we arrange all those types of activities. But in terms of serious programming, you got to hire that stuff.
How does somebody volunteer? Like what, obviously I would assume no criminal record.
No, that's an asset. I consider people with a criminal record, that's lived experience. I would never turn somebody away. It would depend obviously on the circumstances.
On the crime. Yeah.
But no, anybody can volunteer.
So what, they just reach up through the website or?
Yeah.
That's the best way to go about it, or call the house, whatever.
Yeah. Jennifer Graham is our volunteer coordinator. We get a lot of students. Obviously they want to, build their resume. We have everything from, you can answer phones, you can help with fundraising, you can just come and hang out with the guys and do that socialization with them. Anything, you can come and clean if you want.
She's like, please come and clean. Wash the dog.
Are we gonna say, Krill?
Sorry, I keep twitching. Got a bed back. I was just gonna ask you. Was there at least a few or a couple of people that went through hell, went through your program, got back on their feet, or maybe opened a business and was able to donate back to you, to the house?
Yes. We had one guy inside want to give us a very generous donation because we had been so supportive of him. We had to decline that.
I would think so.
It would be seen as, a conflict.
Yeah.
But it's really funny because like 2 weeks later, we got this anonymous donation. It was like really weird. But no, we have a lot of
nice.
Windsor is a very generous community, and we have a lot of people that do recognize that the work that we do is important, and that everybody wants to give to the food bank, everybody wants to give children's charities and cancer, and those are all very worthy causes. Nobody wants to donate,
to the murderers.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's the way they look at it. These people deserve to be there and everything else, right? They don't want to open their pocketbook for that.
No, we don't do a lot of fundraising, but when we need something, like if somebody is moving out, so-and-so needs a couch, we'll have one, in 2 days. Or so-and-so needs it. So we have a lot of guys show up literally with the clothes on their back. We put a call out, we get, tons of clothes.
So does this stigma catch up every once in a while? Like, does the house get eggs thrown at it, or nothing like that? People don't attack it at all?
Good.
No, we did have a high profile sex offender in the house, and somebody had posted, like a poster on a sign just down in the house.
That's a particular individual, but I mean, there's no hate to an actual place, right? Nothing like that. That's
because
good.
we're there to help people, right? We're there to try to make something positive out of something negative.
Mm. So you've been so good answering all of our questions out of curiosity. Is there anything that you would like to get out there? Any sort of message, anything you'd like to speak on, anything you'd like to bring awareness to before we start wrapping up and let you get out of here?
Basically, just in general, for the public to understand that there is so much more to these folks than people are more than their actions. People are more, I always say, think of the absolute worst thing that you've ever done in your life. Now, going forward, you're going to be judged on that one act for the rest of your life. How would that feel? That'd be pretty shitty.
Very shitty.
So you have one person who maybe made one really stupid mistake and they're going to be defined by that for the rest of their life. How poor is that for the community? Because we're missing out, because we have some guys in the house that are absolutely amazing individuals with so much potential. Mm-hmm. Dirk, for example, you met him. He has so many gifts to offer. Yep. If he was stuck inside for the rest of his life, we would be missing out on that. He's been able to come out now. He's giving back to the community. He's helping other folks in the community get their lives back on track. And we wouldn't have had that if we had, life is life.
I think a lot of it has to do with giving the family some sort of closure, right?
Yeah.
Making them do time.
I encourage people to, again, realize that there's more to stories. The media is going to go with the big headlines and try to, report the most salacious details. Usually it's not what really happened. Give folks a chance. And if you don't want to give them a chance, mind your business. Get on with it. Don't be so negative and try to bring everybody down and criticize what agencies are trying to do to make the world a better place.
That's a thing nowadays. Everybody wants to tell everybody what to do.
So wait, before you do go, Catherine,
Yes.
I like crime. I don't like crime. What do you find, what is your number one documentary or fascinating case that you're just like, I will always talk about this if somebody brings it up?
What do you mean, entertainment-wise, Amy?
Yeah. For me, as it applies to the fact that I keep mentioning how not Canadian I am, I had never even heard of, you talked about Netflix, Don't Fuck with Cats until Jason. Right, and so I was watching it, and in addition to the fact that during that time I lived in Northern Indiana, my proximity to Canadian news and things was much stronger than it is now where I live, but that was a global fucking manhunt, and I had never even heard of it. So for like a year after I watched that, I was like, Jason, what did you do to me? Yeah. Like, I Google this shit every day. I can't believe I never heard of it. Like, what is your thing?
One thing that the guys inside have told me, the movie Shawshank Redemption is probably one of the more accurate movies for things that go on. Yeah.
That's terrible, by the way.
I enjoyed it, but
no, that's terrible news.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. I say, really? Was it that bad?
No shit.
One movie that was quite pivotal for me was Dead Man Walking. That made me really challenge my beliefs on something. Because I was quite young then, just starting out in school and talking about capital punishment. And each time I watch that movie, I have a different take on how I feel about it. But there's a lot of really good documentaries out now. Conviction is one that came out quite recently about females, women inside. So there's a lot of, and the correctional system for women is pretty amazing in Canada because they don't have these, maximum security places. They're more like, and the Indigenous facilities are healing lodges. They don't have fences. They don't have barbed wire. The women's facilities don't have, fences.
So sorry, the women could be, a woman that has theft under 5,000 could be doing time with somebody who did like a double murder.
Yeah, anything more than 2 years would be at that facility.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because as far as I understand, maximum is supposed to be for aggressive and less aggressive, right?
The female institution doesn't even have maximum, medium, minimum.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Is that because there's a smaller population
of
female offenders? That's what
people tell us all the time. You should have a house for women. We have, a handful of women on parole in Windsor, Essex County. And like, I couldn't keep a house open, like, because most of them get day patrol right to the community. They don't even go to a halfway house because they're not necessarily violent. It's usually because the boyfriend got mixed up with trafficking and she's helping, or she's,
And having like a left and right side of the house won't work probably, right?
Oh,
that would cause. I got enough problems.
So just operationally in the whole of Canada, like, are all of these institutions gender specific?
Yes.
Like even like a local regional jail, like even.
Now our local jail, there are two. It is they have both male and female, but obviously separate wings.
Ooh.
Federal is completely segregated.
You know that Canadian government just gave out the first gender X passport?
No.
What?
Yeah. In BC, there's a first person that got a passport where gender says X.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry.
What happened to that person?
I was going to say Canada. I'm really proud of Canada in the sense that they will house people on how they identify, not on biology. So there was a female that was going to be coming to our facility who was technically biologically still male, but living as a female within the institution. And this individual was actually released to the female institution and a female halfway house. Biologically still male, but because she identified as female, she was placed in a female.
You agree with that?
I do.
What happens? I mean, this is getting way into the weeds on that, but like, what happens when there's someone who identifies as like non-binary? Like, they don't choose a gender. Like, where do they get funneled? Just wherever they biologically match with?
Well, and that's the thing. It's so new that everybody's trying to kind of figure out what to do. Like with our halfway house, this individual was planning on coming to us, but she identified as a female. So I didn't know how we were going to navigate that because we have double occupancy rooms. We have one bathroom. We couldn't accommodate her. So she ended up going to a female-based halfway house. But I was on the advisory board at our local provincial jail. And there was an individual who was clearly living as a male, biologically male, but referred to herself as female. So they were really struggling with where to put this person. And she was in a cell by herself in segregation because they didn't know where to place her, because she looked and, you know, still had the biology of a male, but the women weren't comfortable having this person in their area because to them, she was still living as a male and appeared as a male. And that was obviously very triggering for a lot of these women that have, you know, horrific histories of abuse and sexual abuse. And
yeah, so I was just going to say, any woman that's ever been abused by a man, I can see right away why they'd have concern with that. Just because you wear a dress and you call yourself by a female name, you're still, especially with a bigger guy, like someone, I'm 6'4", like 270 pounds. If my name's Crystal now, no woman's going to be around me, right? Like they've been abused before.
Crystal, meth.
And a lot of times these folks prefer to be in segregation. They want to be, you know, either in protective custody or by themselves because they are harassed and bothered.
Do you think there could be grounds for people to start faking it to try and do less of a severe time?
I don't know.
There'll always be one.
Would you be willing to go to that extent, you know, to live as a female, to think you're going to get it easier? I don't know. The odds of that happening, I think, are pretty slim.
Yeah, it would take a unique individual to do some shit like that.
Well, I've had, you know, people when I was on the board at the local jail. Well, what if so-and-so's girlfriend's in there and, you know, he's going to pretend he's female to be with his girlfriend? Well, I think we're going to see through that, you know?
Yeah.
Coming soon to Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you can't just switch on a court date, right?
Yeah. Well, Catherine, this has been awesome. Is there any other things you want to get in before we let you go? Because I fear if I don't wrap this up now, we're going to keep going till 3 a.m.
No, just, you know, if anybody's listening and if they ever have real questions about the criminal justice system, or they want to know how it works, or they have somebody going, you know, a son or a family member that's going through it, they can always reach out for support, or we can direct you to, you know, the right resource, you know, and ask questions. Don't judge, ask questions.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for your time, Catherine. I can't tell you how much we appreciate this. Awesome.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll follow up with you afterwards, and obviously I'll send you the links once everything's posted.
Yeah.
For Catherine, Brooke, Amy Barton, Krill Kasatsky, I'm Jay Kelly. This is Building Downtown. We out. Peace.
Thank you.
Building downtown. Building downtown. Building downtown.